other parts of the world was calculated to make they have at the same time an intimate connection with the more immediate accurate has been raised between a confederacy and a consolidation of the states. The essential characteristic of the first is said to be the restriction of its authority to the members in their collective capacities without reaching to the individuals of whom they are composed. It is contended that the National Council ought to have no concern with any object of internal administration. An exact equality of suffrage between the members has also been insisted upon as a leading feature of a confederate government. These positions are in the main arbitrary. They are supported neither by principle nor precedent. Love supposes to be inherent in their nature, but there have been in most of them extensive exceptions to the practice, which serve to prove, as far as example will go, that there is no absolute rule on the subject, and it will be clearly shown in the course of this investigation that as far as the principle contended for has prevailed, it has been the cause of incurable disorder and imbecility in the government.
Ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states, so ratifying the same. The word that being interlined between the 7th and 8th lines of the first page, the word being partly written on an erasure in the 15th line of the first page, the words is tried, being interlined between the 32nd and 33rd lines of the first page, and the word being interlined between the 43rd and 44th lines of the second page. Attest William Jackson, Secretary.
Done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states. Present the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America.
The 12th in witness whereof we have herewith subscribed our name.
The other point of difference is the greater number of citizens, an extent of territory which may be brought within the compass of republican than of democratic government, and it is this circumstance principally which renders factious combinations less to be dreaded in the former than in the latter. The smaller the society, the fewer probably will be the distinct parties and interest composing it. The fewer the distinct parties and interest, the more frequently will a majority be found of the same party. And the smaller the number of individuals composing a majority, plans of oppression extend the sphere, and you take in a greater variety of parties and interests. You make it less probable that a majority of the whole will have a common motive to invade the rights of other citizens. Or if such a common motive exists, it will be more difficult for all who feel it to discover their own strength and to act in unison with each other. Besides other impediments, it may be removed, checked by distrust in proportion to the number republic has over our democracy in controlling the effects of faction is enjoyed by a large over a small republic, is enjoyed by the Union over the states composing it. Does who outnumber and oppress the rest in an equal degree? Does the increased variety of parties comprised within the Union increase this security? Does it, in fine, consist in the greater obstacles opposed to the concert and accomplishment of the secret wishes of an unjust and interested majority? Here, again, the extent of the Union gives it the most palpable advantage.
New states may be admitted by the Congress, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states or parts of states. Without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned, as well as of the Congress shall the palm or other property belonging to the United States. And nothing in this Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion and non-application of the legislature or of the executive. When the legislature cannot be compared against domestic violence. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes. As part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendments which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal. All debts contracted and engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding, members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution,
But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. All subservient to the public good. Enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm, nor in many cases can such an adjustment be made at all without taking into view indirect and remote considerations which will rarely prevail over the immediate interest which one party may find in disregarding the rights of another or the good of the whole. The inference to which we are brought is that the causes of faction cannot be removed, and that relief is only to be sought in the means of controlling its act. If a faction consists of less than a majority, relief is supplied by the Republican principle, which enables the majority to defeat its sinister views by regular vote. It may clog the administration, it may convulse the society, but it will be unable to execute and mask its violence under the forms of the Constitution. When a majority is included in a faction, the form of popular government, on the other hand, enables it to sacrifice to its ruling passion or interest both the public good and the rights of other citizens. To secure the public good and private rights against the danger of such a faction, and at the same time to preserve the spirit and the form of popular government, is then the great object to which our inquiries are directed. Let me add that it is the great desideratum by which this form of government can be rescued from the opprobrium under which it has so long labored, and be recommended to the esteem and adoption of mankind. By what means is this object attainable? Evidently by one of two, only either the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority, having such coexistent passion or interest, must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of oppression. If the impulse and the opportunity be suffered to coincide, we well know that neither moral nor religious motives can be relied on as an adequate control. They are not found to be such on the injustice and violence of individuals, and lose their efficacy in proportion to the number combined together. That is, in proportion as their efficacy becomes needful. Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserve character and fate, as when he contemplates their propensity to this dangerous vice. He will not fail, therefore, to set a due value on any plan which, without violating the principles to which he is attached, provides a proper cure. In truth, in the mortal diseases under which popular governments have everywhere perished, as they continue
positions on the popular models, both ancient and modern, cannot certainly be too much admired, but it would be an unwarrantable partiality to contend that they have, as was wished and expected. Complaints are everywhere heard from our most considerate and virtuous citizens, equally the friends of public and private faith and of public and personal liberty, that our governments are too unstable, that the public good is disregarded in the conflicts of rival parties, and that measures are too often decided not according to the rules of justice and the rights of the minor party, but by the superior force of an interested and overbearing majority. However anxiously we may wish that these complaints had no foundation, the evidence of known facts will not permit us to deny that they are in some degree true. It will be found indeed on a candid review of our situation that some of the distresses under which we labor have been erroneously charged on the operation of our governments. But it will be found at the same time that other causes will not alone account for many of our heaviest misfortunes, and particularly for that prevailing and increasing distrust of public engagements and alarm for private rights, which are echoed from one end of the continent to the other. These must be chiefly, if not wholly, effects of the unsteadiness and injustice with which a factious spirit has tainted our public administration. By a faction, I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens, or to the permanent and aggregate interest of the community. If a single member should attempt to usurp the supreme authority, he could not be supposed to have an equal authority and credit in all the Confederate States. Were he to have too great influence over one, this would alarm the rest. Were he to subdue a part, that which would still remain free might oppose him with forces independent of those which he had usurped, and overpower him before he could be settled in his usurpation. Should abuses creep into one part, they are reformed by those that remain sound. The state may be destroyed on one side and not on the other. The Confederacy may be dissolved and the Confederates preserve their sovereignty. As this government is composed of small republics, it enjoys the internal happiness of each, and with respect to its external situation, it is possessed by means of the association of all the advantages of large monarchies. I have thought it proper to quote at length these interesting passages, because they contain a luminous abridgment of the principal arguments in favor of the Union, and must effectually move the false impressions The misapplication of other parts of the work was calculated to make they have at the same time an intimate connection with the more immediate design of this paper, which is to illustrate the tendency of the Union to repress domestic faction and insurrection. A distinction more subtle than accurate has been raised between a confederacy and a consolidation of the states. The essential characteristic of the first is said to be the restriction of its authority to the members in their collective capacities, without reaching to the individuals of whom they are composed. It is contended that the National Council ought to have no concern with any object of internal administration. An exact equality of suffrage between the members has also been insisted upon as a leading feature of a confederate government. These positions are, in the main, arbitrary. They are supported neither by principle nor precedent. It has indeed happened that government supposes to be inherent in their nature, but there have been in most of them extensive exceptions to the practice, which serve to prove, as far as example will go, that there is no absolute rule on the subject, and it will be clearly shown in the course of this investigation that as far as the principle contended for has prevailed, it has been the cause of incurable disorder and imbecility in the government.
Referring the examination of the principle itself to another place. As has been already mentioned, it will be sufficient to remark here that, in the sense of the author who has been most emphatically quoted upon the occasion, it would only dictate a reduction of the size of the more considerable members of the Union, but would not militate against their being all comprehended in one confederate government. And this is the true question in the discussion of which we are at present interested. So far are the suggestions of Montesquieu. It is very probable,
Says he won.
that mankind would have been obliged at length to live constantly under the government of a single person, had they not contrived a kind of constitution that has all the internal advantages of a republican, together with the external force of a monarchical government.
I mean a confederate public.
This form of government is a convention by which several smaller states agree to become members of a larger one which they intend to form. It is a kind of assemblage of societies that constitute a new one capable of increasing by means of new associations till they arrive to such a degree of power as to be able to provide for the security of the united body.
A republic of this kind, able to withstand an external force, may support itself without any internal corruptions. The form of this society prevents all manner of inconveniences.
The utility of a confederacy as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external force and security. It's in reality not a new idea. It has been practiced upon in different countries and ages, and has received the sanction of the most approved writers on the subject of politics. The opponents of the plan propose that great assiduity cited and circulated the observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a Republican ready acquiescence. Montesquieu recommends a small extent for republics. The standards he had in view in New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternative, either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or splitting ourselves into objects of universal pity or contempt. So most the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma, and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such a desperate expedient might, by the multiplication of petty offices, answer the views of men who possess not qualifications to extend their influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness of the people of America.
The utility of a confederacy, as well to suppress faction and to guard the internal tranquility of states, as to increase their external sanction of the most approved writers on the subject of politics. The opponents of the plan proposed have, with great assiduity, cited and circulated observations of Montesquieu on the necessity of a contracted territory for a republican government. But they seem not to have been apprised of the sentiments of that great man expressed in another part of his work, nor to have adverted to the consequences of the principle to which they subscribe with such ready acquiescence. When Montesquieu recommends a small extent for republics, the standards he had in view were of dimensions far short of the limits of almost every one of these states. Neither Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, nor Georgia can by any means be compared with the models from which he reasoned and to which the terms of his description apply. If we therefore take his ideas on this point as the criterion of truth, we shall be driven to the alternate either of taking refuge at once in the arms of monarchy, or of splitting ourselves into an infinity of little jealous, clashing, tumultuous commonwealths, the wretched nurseries of unceasing discord, and the miserable objects of universal pity or contempt. Some of the writers who have come forward on the other side of the question seem to have been aware of the dilemma, and have even been bold enough to hint at the division of the larger states as a desirable thing. Such an infatuated policy, such influence beyond the narrow circles of personal intrigue. But it could never promote the greatness or happiness.
To the people of the state of New York, a firm union will be of the utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of the petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrast to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of the blaze of glory break forth from the globe, while they dazzle the lust with the transient and fleeting brilliancy. They at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of government should pervert their direction and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for rules of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society and have indulged themselves in malicious exultation over its friends and partisans. Happily for mankind's stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have in a few glorious instances refuted their gloomy sophisms, and I trust originals from which they were taken. If it had been found impractical to have devised models of a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obliged to abandon the cause of that species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvement. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institutes of their own election. These are wholly new discoveries or have made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. They are means and powerful means by which the excellences of republican governments may be retained and its imperfections lessened or avoided to this catalog of circumstances that tend to the amelioration of popular systems of civil government. I shall venture, however novel it may appear to some, to add one more on a principle which has been made the foundation of an objection to the new Constitution. I mean, the enlargement of the orbit within which such systems are to revolve, either in respect to the dimensions of a single state or to the consolidation of several smaller states into one great confederacy. The latter is that which immediately concerns the object under consideration. It will, however, be of use to examine the principle in its application to a single state, which shall be attended to in another place. To the people of the state of New York, a firm union will be of the utmost moment to the peace and liberty of the states as a barrier against domestic faction and insurrection. It is impossible to read the history of the petty republics of Greece and Italy without feeling sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated, and at the rapid succession of revolutions by which they were kept in a state of perpetual vibration between the extremes of tyranny and anarchy. If they exhibit occasional calms, these only serve as short-lived contrast to the furious storms that are to succeed. If now and then intervals of felicity open to view, we behold them with a mixture of regret arising from the reflection that the pleasing scenes before us are soon to be overwhelmed by the tempestuous waves of sedition and party rage. If momentary rays of glory break forth from the gloom while they dazzle us with a transient and fleeting brilliancy, they at the same time admonish us to lament that the vices of government should pervert the direction and tarnish the luster of those bright talents and exalted endowments for which the favored soils that produced them have been so justly celebrated. From the disorders that disfigure the annals of those republics, the advocates of despotism have drawn arguments, not only against the forms of republican government, but against the very principles of civil liberty. They have decried all free government as inconsistent with the order of society and have indulged themselves in malicious malicious exultation over its friends and partisans happily for mankind. Stupendous fabrics reared on the basis of liberty, which have flourished for ages, have, in a few glorious instances, refuted their gloomy sophisms. And I trust America will be the broad and solid foundation of other edifices, not less magnificent, which will be equally permanent monuments of their errors. But it is not to be denied that the portraits they have sketched of Republican government were too just copies of the originals from which they were taken. If it had been found impractical to have devised models of a more perfect structure, the enlightened friends to liberty would have been obliged to abandon the cause of that species of government as indefensible. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvement. The efficacy of various principles is now well understood, which were either not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients. The regular distribution of power into distinct departments, the introduction of legislative balances and checks, the institution of courts composed of judges holding their offices during good behavior, the representation of the people in the legislature by deputies of their own election. These are wholly new discoveries, or made their principal progress towards perfection in modern times. They are means, and powerful means, by which the excellences of Republican government may be retained and its imperfections lessened or avoided. To this catalog of circumstances that tend to the amelioration of popular systems of civil government, I shall venture, however novel it may appear to some, to add one more on a principle which has been made the foundation of an objection to the new Constitution. I mean, the enlargement of the orbit within which such systems are to revolve, either in respect to the dimensions of a single state or the consolidation of several smaller states into one great confederacy. The latter is that which immediately concerns the object under consideration. It will, however, be of use to examine the principle in its application to a single state, which shall be attended to in another place. If we are wise enough to preserve the union we made for ages, enjoy an advantage similar to that of an insulated situation. Europe is at a great distance from us. Her colonies in our vicinity will be likely to continue too much disproportion in strength to be able to give us any dangerous annoyance. Extensive military establishments cannot, in this position, be necessary to our security. But if we should be disunited, and the integral parts should either remain separated or, which is most probable, should be thrown together into two full powers of Europe, our liberties would be a prey to the means of defending ourselves against the ambition and jealousy of each other. This is an idea not superficial or futile, but solid and weighty. It deserves the most serious and mature consideration of every prudent and honest man of whatever party. If such men will make a firm and solemn pose and meditate dispassionately on the importance of this interesting idea, if they will contemplate it in all its attitudes and trace it to all its consequences, they will not hesitate to part with trivial objections to a constitution give place to the more substantial forms of dangers, real, certain, and formidable. This objection will be fully examined in its proper place, and it will be shown that the only natural precaution which could have been taken on this subject has been taken, and a much better one than is to be found. Contain no God at all on this subject. Back to text. If we are wise enough to preserve the union we made for ages, enjoy an advantage similar to that of an insulated situation. Europe is at a great distance from us. Her colonies in our vicinity will be likely to continue too much disproportioned in strength to be able to give us any dangerous noise. Extensive military establishments cannot in this position be necessary to our security. But if we should be disunited and the integral parts should either remain separated or, which is most probable, should be thrown together into 2 or 3 confederacies, we should be in a short course of time in the predicament of the continental powers of Europe. Our liberties would be a prey to the means of defending ourselves against the ambition and jealousy of each other. This is an idea not superficial or futile, but solid and weighty. It deserves the most serious and national consideration of every prudent and honest man of whatever party. If such men will make a firm and solemn purpose and meditate dispassionately on the importance of this interesting idea, if they will contemplate it in all its attitudes and trace it to all its consequences, they will not hesitate to come with trivial objections to a constitution, the rejection of which would in all probability put a final period to the union. The airy phantoms that flit before the distempered imaginations of some of its adversaries would quickly give place to the more substantial forms of dangers real, certain, and formidable. There is a wide difference, also, between military establishments in a country seldom exposed by its situation to internal invasions, and in one which is often subject to them, and always apprehensive of them. The rulers of the former can have a good pretext if they are even so inclined to keep on foot armies so numerous as must of necessity. For interior defense, the people are in no danger of being broken to military subordination. The laws are not accustomed to relaxations in favor of military exigency. The smallest of the army renders the natural strength of the community an overmatch for it, and the citizens not habituated to look up to the military power for protection or to submit to its oppressions, neither love nor fear the soldiery. They view them with a spirit of jealous acquiescence in a necessary evil, and stand ready to resist the power which they suppose may be exerted to the prejudice of their rights. The army under such circumstances may usefully aid the magistrate to suppress a small faction or an occasional mob or insurrection, but it will be unable to enforce encroachments against the united efforts of the great body of the people. In a country in the predicament lost to describe, the contrary of all this happens. The perpetual menacings of danger oblige the government to be always prepared to repel it. Its armies must be numerous enough for instant defense. The continual necessity for their services enhances the importance of the soldier and proportionately degrades the condition of the citizen. The military state becomes elevated above the civil. The inhabitants of territories, often the theater of war, are unavoidably subjected to frequent infringements on their rights, which serve to weaken their sense of those rights. By degrees, the people are brought to consider the soldiery not only as their protectors, but as their superiors. The transition from this disposition to that of considering them masters is neither remote nor difficult. But it is very difficult to prevail upon a people under such impressions to make a bold or effectual resistance to usurp passions supported by the military power. The kingdom of Great Britain falls within the first description. An insular situation and a powerful marine, guarding it in a great measure against the possibility of foreign invasion, supersede the necessity of a numerous army within the kingdom. A sufficient force to make head against a sudden descent, till the militia could have time to rally and embody, is all that has been deemed requisite. No motive of national policy has demanded, nor would public opinion have tolerated a larger number of troops upon its domestic establishment. Necessity be maintained in the latter. These armies the entire black demographic. I mean, you could give us 100 videos of 100 people saying the same thing. It doesn't mean that that's, you know, a representation of the entire black community. You know, I mean, he obviously like thinking about how many people there are, you know. I mean, and that, like, just like it's just weird that you would say that, like, I mean, because your entire point was brought up on what you're seeing on X and these videos of these women saying that they're entitled to go and steal and that nobody should say anything, but then at the same time you will say that it's not entirely but you'll say at the same time that you're aware that it's not just a black issue. It's everybody that does this type of shit. So if you can recognize that, then why would you even buy into that thought process? That obviously, like, we all know there are people that will do or say anything to justify their own bad behavior. That's, you know, that's a given. And a lot of the time, I mean, I'm not even going to get to the root cause of that, but I mean, that's, you know that. Like, I would
assume that you're bright enough to understand that.
I do.
So to expect that to be an adopted mentality of the entire populace it's ridiculous, and to allow that to be how you form your opinion on the entire community, because that is how you initially started off this conversation, was you've lost faith in Black people. Like, it's just a poor way of moving throughout this world. Like, you're always gonna run it. Like, I'm not gonna go and say and I'm not trying to throw out white tropes or anything, like racist tropes. Like, I'm not, but I mean, just to be, in the same lane as what you're suggesting, I'm not going to go out and say oh, I have lost all faith in white men because they're pushing this narrative that it's okay to sleep with minors. Yeah,
but Drew,
Ricky, stop for a second, please. I'm sorry. Drew, I don't know. Maybe I missed something. I was listening for quite some time.
I will.
Ricky, can you hear me?
Yeah, let him go real quick.
I'm gonna go on mute right after this, Anthony. The reason I'm saying it, because I do understand that exact same thing. I do understand that. And I do understand that there are poor white communities and just piece of shit white communities that do the exact same thing. But saying that it's okay. And that's over now. It's been Black women, particularly, and some Black men. And the white pieces of shit have been doing the same thing, but they haven't been.
Hey, Drew, I've been listening for a while in the audience, right? And what I thought I heard him say was that he was sick of white people, and he also said he was also sick of Black people. And
I think he was talking about. I think he was talking about Europeans. He said Europeans. I don't think that he was talking about white people.
Europeans pretending to be white. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Drew, as it relates to all right, listen, I don't agree with his sentiments. I'm not here to, agree or disagree or whatever, right? All I'm saying is that given the context, it was just odd how a portion of it got latched onto and not really considering the whole thing that got said. That's,
I mean, in terms of us not bringing up the portion of him gave. The only example he gave was Black women stealing in the stores. He didn't give us any type of context as to, maybe that's based off of the question that we asked, but we didn't dissect the entire statement.
No, I hear what you're saying, Drew, right? But in terms of it would seem to me like his algorithm is feeding him a certain set of videos. And that might be a reflection of what the algorithm thinks he wants to see, And it's a small enough stage that, and you've always been super respectful, Drew, so I don't mind engaging with you. But it's oftentimes when we come into these spaces and we start talking, the so-called Black community gets defined by Black people, by the lowest common denominator. Black people that's doing the worst oftentimes are the talking point. What about the poor Black people? What about the Black people that that rely on public assistance? What about the Black people that don't read at grade level? These tend to be talking points. I've even seen, Black people in majority white spaces, bring up these talking points, how, Black people are being failed by the education system, and then if the question gets raised, if Johnny can't read I don't see any room to debate about that. I don't see any room to have these conversations. But then then it's like, well, why are we so focused on, a certain segment of Black people? The reason why this segment of Black people gets focused on is because that's where a lot of Black people, that's their main talking point. So it would make sense for it to be focused on if we want to have a difficult, honest conversation. If we want to pretend like that's not the case, then you can keep on pretending. That's cool too.
Wait a minute. Hold up. It's not a case enough to have a discussion about. Because at the end of the day, if Ricky wants to be disappointed in Black women for what he's saying on his Twitter, then that's a him problem. And now he's trying to make it everybody else's problem.
I'm past Ricky. I'm talking about just in general.
Well, I've never seen this before. I've never heard of this stuff before. So I'm in a completely different planet than obviously you and Ricky. Because you're saying to act as if this isn't happening. But I'm saying, but I want to be clear because I'm talking, and then you're interrupting me. I'm telling you that I have never heard of whatever crusade you're saying that these Black women have gone on. I've never heard this before. It has never crossed my algorithm. It has never crossed my news station. As if this is a popular movement. Huh? As if this is a popular movement.
You stop talking. I thought you stopped talking first lady. But so first lady, Drew, real quick. I just want to engage first lady real quick.
It's possible.
I just want to make sure.
You heard what I said? I said what I said. I swear on my father's dead grave. I've never, never, ever heard this story in my life of 87 years of living. I've never heard it.
Why do you keep saying that?
And what?
You're 87 years old.
Because that's my age on Clubhouse, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, cool. So, all good, Drew. You got it.
Yeah. Just real quick. I mean, I get it, but it's like I don't understand. Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of people that talk about it. Plenty of people use this as a talking point. I've heard it. Those are typically the people that are quick to get ousted as a coon when they're speaking down upon your own people. But I mean, it's not necessarily like a justification for that. Like, the thing is I think that we're all aware. Okay, well, I'm talking about that being the talking point and that being or this type of behavior being a talking point. People at the lowest the lowest denominator being a talking point for all sorts of people, whether it's Black or white, and especially in these types of spaces when it comes to these debates about the Black community. That's typically who is pinpointed, as the topic of conversation. That doesn't it's real. Like, there are representations of every sort of person out there like that, but that would be the same as me. Like, I can understand how a logical person would say, like, okay, I see a pattern. Now I'm gonna adopt that pattern as a reflection of the whole, right? But that'd be like me going out and saying, like, I see a pattern of.
You're off mic. I don't know if you realize it.
No, that was a troll. But that's I got him. Don't worry. Yeah, that's like me saying that there's a pattern of white men shooting up schools, or there's a pattern of white men touching kids. I might be
really missing the point. Drew, so the other day, right, we were having a conversation about the woman walking her kids home in Chicago that got attacked by the students. All right. Now, I want to be clear about this, Drew. Anthony Edwards does not look at this as a racial incident. I don't see what race has to do with that situation. All right? Now, there's one of the most pro-black people on the app. He's what I would call a blackity black. He said that he went to her social media, Facebook in particular, and that, he saw some disturbing things as a parent, like her throwing gang signs and this and that and the other.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then, so it became a narrative that he was being anti-black. He didn't mention race. He just talked about the things that he observed. This is when we start to eat our own anti-black. We can't even have conversations about stuff because the quick assertion is going to be, you are anti-black. This is, but and this is like just basic stuff. We can't even say like, the behavior of those kids or anything. Why is that a racial issue? The victim was black and the perpetrators were black. Why is this a racial issue?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can
Uptime.
I can understand. I can understand that. Like, and I mean, I don't think that we should operate that way where we cannot have any type of like criticism for bad behavior, regardless of what the skin color is of the person. I mean, I was just in here like 10 minutes ago speaking about the culture, what I would consider black culture, the types of shows that we entertain or that we use as entertainment, the types of channels that are popular on Instagram, the type of music that is, pushed to the top of the food chain. I mean, I get that. I'm not one that's like obtuse in that scenario where I can't see any type of issue within, the black community, but I just don't like, I think, well, hold on real quick. Beginning is based on your assertion that you're disappointed in black people, saying the entire black community based off of the behavior of a few individuals that you've seen, regardless of whether you've seen 100 videos of people doing this, you've already acknowledged that that this is not a reflection of every person in the community. So how is it that we can't separate the two? Like, how does that become your